bring it. I'll park it over next to the car.
All right, ladies, we are live. We are live streaming.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh, at least I believe it this time.
And you get dressed for the occasion.
All right, Sandra, can I get you a cup of coffee?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Are you sure?
Stand up, I'll push you. Okay.
Well, Doris, let me help you out here.
Okay.
I'll get you, Doris.
Oh, thank you very
All right.
much.
Why don't we just do
Things
this?
are heavy. Wow. This is, they don't roll. Thank you.
They do not roll.
No, they don't. The,
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Very nice.
Now we almost got you in too tight.
That's okay.
Breathe,
No,
that's
that's all
serious.
right. It's not touching me.
I am right,
Thank
for
you.
the new dining room
Oh, that's a pretty
chair is gonna have.
Oh, yes.
Front and
so-
back.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
No, just front.
Yeah.
Back.
Right.
The back will create some additional issues potentially.
We'll have people rolling all over the floor.
Yeah.
Back my handbrake.
That might be entertaining if we weren't doing it.
These would be like the club rooms.
Yeah, those are
So
nice.
easy.
Yeah.
Aren't they nice?
All right.
Well,
Well, smaller group today. That's just fine. How are we?
Good.
Fantastic. You ladies, well, first let me just start. What questions do we have? It's a beautiful day out there. We had some rain this morning, but it seems, I mean, a little chilly. Yeah.
No rain.
We had rain.
That was yesterday.
That was yesterday. My days are wild.
Oh.
Can I give you the excuse?
No, you were up
Sure.
all night with a
Go
baby.
ahead.
You know,
How'd you know?
but there's a unit where you could move in here that would help me.
I know, and trust me, I've probably been asked that and said, do you need to spend the night just to, you know?
Yes.
I said I probably could.
Refresh.
Refresh. So yes, and yeah, my little guy's got a double ear infection. So yeah, sleep is. But we got him on some antibiotics yesterday, and he's good to go. So I mean, they are resilient, and like the interesting thing was he popped a fever, then it went away, back to normal, eating, drinking, doing all the fun stuff, and then it happened again, and then it popped, and then it go down, and so. I took him I was actually out of the office yesterday, taking care of him, getting him up to the doctor, and but he was I don't want to say back to 100% himself this morning, but he slept through the night, and he was happy this morning, so we were all set. So yes, that's why my nights blend together. But yes, it rained yesterday. It did not rain this morning. It was a lovely morning drive-in. A little chilly, but I guess it is now nearing November. So, I mean, I can't believe it, but I think we've been pretty lucky.
Oh, we have.
I actually got out on the golf course on Saturday.
Yes, it was still good then.
It was. Probably last time. So, yeah. So, what's on everybody's mind? What questions can I answer?
Vaccines.
The next vaccines. Great question.
Yeah.
So the Moderna vaccines now are available, and so we know CVS on Farwell has them. Teresa's been directing people that way. We've been reaching out to CVS to see when they and if they can come on campus here to provide them to the residents. Now, if you do not want to wait, I understand, but CVS on Farwell has the Moderna doses. I'm not sure if you also saw that Pfizer has been out for some time. And they actually said if you got Moderna, the Pfizer would still be effective, not as effective, but there's no contraindications. Again, going back and forth and working with the medical director, LCS, and just some different resources. And I apologize because, again, I truly want to make sure it's available to you, make sure that ease of access is as simple as that first dose was and have a second dose right here on campus. Unfortunately, the news, CDC, who's got it, who's giving it, what's availability, has been a little bit more troubling and troublesome to get that nailed down. So, come on over, ladies.
Here, there you go. But if you get everybody, or for someone to sign up everybody online, because you need to make an appointment in CVS, then you can take a bus over and take a bus.
We could. We definitely
And
could.
it's one on Farwell, you said.
It's the one on Farwell. So,
Not this, this one is just Pfizer.
this is just Pfizer right here on Downer.
I have mine.
So, and yeah, I know a couple residents got the Pfizer, so. Or you could take the back seats. Whatever's convenient and easiest for you. So yes, So Teresa's doing some research for me. She reached out to Farwell again today to see if she could get somebody, because they're the ones that provide the flu shot clinic as well. So we have that relationship. But again, haven't gotten a solid commitment. So as soon as I know, that is on Teresa's to-do list. It has been, and it's unfortunately she's been going calling and trying to figure out what is best, and just hasn't gotten a for sure answer. So for those of you that joined late, we're talking about the Moderna vaccine, when's it going to be available. And so right now what I know is that it was available on Farwell. You can sign up online for an appointment. Sandra just said, well, if we all sign up, can we take a bus? And I think we can easily accommodate that. That's a great option. But again, I don't know if we can get back to back at CVS. So
there's a fair amount of paperwork that is required online now. It's not just the old one. The old one is your give your insurance card and you. But this one they want to know that I don't know. It requires a little more typing.
Right, and I'm sure it's probably because it's not as funded as the initial doses, and so they need to make sure they're dotting their I's, crossing their T's, and making sure that.
I didn't know that there's a difference around funding now.
I mean, I'm sure they're funding it, probably just not, and this is all in my guesstimation, so I probably shouldn't be saying it, but I'm guessing that, again, the government has laid out billions of dollars for the initial vaccines, and I'm assuming that now they're tightening up just slightly. And still, I think the obviously that October 6th, we are fully vaccinated from an employee standpoint. We're still trying to get there, I think, as a country, to get everybody that first dose. And I think by now we know that first dose and second doses are pretty much done, and those that aren't. But I think that there's still some trickle-down effect from industries. For instance, Aurora Hospital, Freighter Hospital, they are only working with even construction contractors that have fully vaccinated staff. And so the construction industry was one of the ones that were lowest from an acceptance rate. And I can share with you just from personal knowledge that some of the construction companies have changed their minds, and they've gotten vaccinated. They've mandated their staff to get vaccinated because guess what? They really want to stay in business, and guess what? That's a pretty large account for them. So I think we'll still see some of that. Or renovating or fixing something, and it's always on an emergency basis, right? So I mean, charge that premium. So yes, but the more I know, I definitely will forward on to you.
You've had your.
I had mine because we were Pfizer, and they bring your card, and they put the third date on your card. You have to be sure you have.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yes. So make sure. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, you got to carry that stuff with you.
What else? What other questions?
How are you coming with the hospitality director position?
All right. I figured some of you, and I'm going to be getting a notice out before I leave today, and it'll be on there. So you'll hear it first from me. We have hired an individual. She starts Monday, November 1st.
She.
So her name is Majarka. Majarka comes to us with over 15 years of experience in the hospitality industry. She worked at the Osthoff Resort and up in Kohler, Sheboygan area. And so she started there roughly 15 years ago and has worked her way through and up, and was the director and is the director of dining for the Osthoff. And so with that experience, we had the opportunity. Oh, hello. We had the opportunity, myself, we had a really strong applicant pool, which was really, really nice for the position.
It's unusual since it's been so hard to get applicants even for other positions.
It has, and it still is, but credit to Jen and Mia, who is our HR team, just doing an incredible job of thinking outside the box in working with partners, in posting we have 5 different websites that we post to for all of our positions. It's a lot, and pretty much all up to Jen for what she's been able to do, particularly in this position, because we didn't necessarily have to hire a recruiter for this one. And in the past, we've had to hire a director for recruiter. Nonetheless, the first interview was a phone screen and a phone interview with Jen. Jen spent about half hour, 45 minutes on the phone with each of the individuals. Then she passed them along if she felt they were strong enough. So Jen probably ended up speaking to probably 15 to 20 individuals, passed along 4. And so out of those 4, the next interview was myself, Tim, Chef Tim, and then Dawn, our registered dietitian. Just because we knew we needed some of that healthcare component as well. And so Tim, myself, and Dawn interviewed, actually it ended up being 3 individuals. One individual actually ended up canceling. Of the 3 individuals, Majarka just stood really above the other 2, in our opinion. Then Majarka came back for a 3rd interview and met with 5 other directors. And so Lindsay B. Jude, as the administrator, was there. We had our finance director, we had Eric, our director of facilities, Jen, and Laura, just because activities generally, everybody enjoys food and drink. And, there's some overlap there. So we wanted to make sure we all felt pretty good. And so again, everybody felt very strongly and felt excited. And so Majarka will bring with her a little different skill set. And definitely has the opportunity to grow here at East Castle Place. One of the things she said was she's looking for her next home. There was a change at the Osthoff. As every business changes, the GM changed. And so with that GM change, there's just a different focus. Sometimes they like to bring in kind of some of their own, so to speak. And so, again, Majarka spoke very, very highly of the Osthoff and her experience there, and just said it was time for change. And so, that's what led her to us, and so we're excited to have her on board. She'll actually be in tomorrow, just doing some initial touring and some of that initial type paperwork, and actually meeting with the full director team now, as I have a COVID-19 update that I hold each week with the director team, and so she'll just get the initial welcome from the team.
Is this the theory that they all have to begin with an M in the kitchen? Is that what's happening? We've got Malaysia, we've got Malia, we've got Mary, we've got Majarka.
It was a prerequisite.
I thought so.
You know,
Easy to eliminate those.
Yes, very, very easy. But no, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, I didn't even think about that. So
how is Tim working for a woman?
good. Tim was very excited when he interviewed Majarka, as he was. I mean, again, ultimately this Majarka will report up to me. But if Tim and Dawn had said, you know what, I don't see myself working with them, obviously that's not the candidate I'm going to move forward with, because obviously Tim and Dawn and the team is who is producing. So, but no, this was Tim's #1 candidate as well. So.
Does this woman have any background with the healthcare part of it?
So that's one portion that she does not.
Okay.
And so again, that's where talking with Dawn and Lindsay and Ashley, director of nursing. Again, that's an area that will be within our first 30 to 60 days. We'll be heavily focused on. We are fortunate to be in a position where we do have a full-time dietitian that takes care of a lot of the clinical compliance type things specific to the healthcare area, just because of the regulations that we still have to uphold. But Tim never had that background either, and that was interesting to hear Tim's perspective on that. Because again, the diets are produced downstairs, and so, but that is, you can learn that portion of it, because there is guidance and regulation to it. So, that's something that, when we spoke to Majarka, she was excited about, but ultimately, yes, there's guidelines and things of that nature that we have to uphold in different diet orders. At the end of the day, I don't necessarily want too much of a change from the restaurant style dining that you enjoy in independent living to the skilled nursing and assisted living portions, because ultimately that there's your neighbors that may have progressed into that portion and need that portion, and so I put myself in those shoes, and why wouldn't I want that type of service and type of food? So I think there's unique opportunities with that. I definitely think there's a learning curve with that. But I definitely think Majarka has that personality and that background to be able to grasp those things. So, and again, Lindsay and Ashley and Dawn and Cheryl, I think will do a really nice job in assisting in that. So yeah. But no, I mean that's transparently one area that in working with the OSTOP, you didn't necessarily have those. But at the same time, you still did have sanitary guidelines. You did have food temperatures, and
Sure.
you know that you had to maintain. So yes, you'll hear that first. What other updates was I going to put on there? COVID-19 update, just so everybody knows, I did not get an update out last week. We may be able to go back to bi-weekly updates. You've probably seen the updates really pertain more to the community and just keeping you more informed of kind of things that we're going through, more so from a community standpoint that directly affects your lives. And so COVID, and again, that's a good thing, right? COVID is not at East Castle. We know that it's still out there. We know we still are monitoring that. We know that it's still a real threat. And I think anybody that is walking around thinking it's not is very, very mistaken. Unfortunately, I think that the news as well as others have just kind of said, you know what, this, we're monitoring and we're tracking, but we're kind of moving forward too. But I think with the vaccination now of staff as well, adds that layer of protection. But again, if you, so currently no staff members are out, and currently no residents are out, or are even symptomatic at this time.
What about the contractors you have, the outside contractors?
That's our next step.
We're not requiring them of them, so the painters could be unvaccinated.
So, because right now that is not necessarily a requirement like Freighter, like Aurora. Do I see us going there? Yes. I need to first make sure that I have all of my staff fully vaccinated, and that's the priority. And then, yes, I mean, Teresa's have already been working with the private duty aides as well as the caregiver agencies. Our preferred partners, we're all asking and will be requiring after the first of the year to have vaccinated staff in this building and only in this building. The other piece of that is the auditing and the tracking. Because again, the front desk, as you know, they check in, AccuShield, they go through all the symptoms and questions, and they take the temperature. But that's another piece that then, we're saying, are you vaccinated? They can say yes. And so again, ethically, I hope that that's always the case, that they answer responsibly. But again, then it goes back to the visitors. If we have visitors in our building, are we going to require them to be vaccinated as well? Because ultimately, we have more visitors than we do contractors. And the contractors, if you think about it, are very minimally interacting with residents generally. They're in empty apartments. The concern would be on the elevators, of course, but all of our contractors are to be masked, and they all do check in at the front desk. So again, that's why I'm not. I didn't lay down necessarily the deadline and the for sure, but it's kind of like the mail carriers and the UPS drivers and the Amazon drivers and all those individuals that come into our building. And the other piece of that is going back to 6 months ago, where 15 minutes of no mask and unvaccinated, those are really where you get concerned, and that's where you are kind of exposed, if you will. So those people are in and out so quickly, and generally are wearing masks. I mean, all of them should be. So I think we're minimizing our risk there.
How about the hairdresser?
That's what I was going to ask.
So the hairdressers will be. Laura?
They haven't been.
No.
And so we know that November 5th we have a new contractor coming in for the salon. You should have received that notice.
Yeah.
So Mir Salon, and they do have their individuals vaccinated.
Okay.
So, it's one of those things that hindsight 2020 was probably an oversight on my part. But yeah, I guess I'll own that as an oversight.
Because that was unfortunate, because she did get very close to you,
They
and although she masked all the time, it never dawned on me that she wasn't vaccinated.
I didn't make it till she just told me that.
Yeah, and I wasn't aware, and they weren't forthcoming with that. And I guess again, I assumed some things, and you know what that is. So there.
I bet you'd like to get rid of the salon.
That's why I am.
You had more trouble.
That's why we're changing providers.
Yeah, but I mean, even before then, it was,
So,
yeah.
personally, I did not. Thankfully, my wife is not a hairdresser. Nothing against hairdressers, but I do not want to be a salon manager.
Yeah.
That is not my forte.
Yeah.
I love going to the salon. My wife loves it even more, and I, have incredible friends that do hair, and But yes, I do not want to be in the salon management business. That was a prerequisite when I talked to this salon who I've worked with in the past. I said, "Yeah, I'm hiring you to do this," and they laughed. And they said, "Well, of course." I said, "But no, you really need to do this. Like, I don't want to be like, no, our phone numbers are on the information that they get, and so that's who they need to be speaking to." So, again, in talking with PS Salon, I appreciated what they did. I mean, they came in tough circumstances, transitioning from a salon. I think a few of you were here prior to that transition, and when you have those relationships, you can't replace those relationships, but heck, we could have done a much better job. They did receive a 62 on the resident satisfaction survey as well, which was a 0% increase, and so that's the other reason for the change. I was hedging my bet.
What about new residents? Can you require them before they move in to be vaccinated?
Interesting, Polly, question you bring up, Polly. So the question was, what about new residents that are moving in? Can you require them to be vaccinated? And I say it's interesting because we are monitored by an equal opportunity housing agency, and we have guidelines to go by. It's, we can do it from a staff standpoint because we're paying staff. They are paid to be here, and it's interesting because it is out there, and there's, I'm sure, some legalese that are also working through this piece as well. I can share with you that all the residents that have come in have been vaccinated, but again, as a requirement to be here, I haven't made that a top 3 question for Anna and Heidi to get to before they sign the papers. But I think they would, I think we could put some requirements in place, meaning that they would have to mask, things of that nature, test regularly, much like anybody that has an exemption for religious or medical purposes. We'll have our being tested once a week. We'll go up to twice a week, our masks, so on and so forth. So we could be more stringent from a community standpoint, but to say that you can't move in, I would be hesitant. Again, just
that would be very touchy, wouldn't it?
It would be, and so again, it's kind of even yes, I could set a lot of policies and procedures, but when you get to the equal opportunity housing agencies and Department of Insurance and things of that nature that we are governed by, that would also be probably a board initiative, as the board is the governing body. So that would be something that we would put past them. I have not, but interesting thought.
Could be very dangerous though.
Well, there
Just
seems to
one
be a
couple
lot of
things.
people moving in recently, and I was just wondering if that's one of the requirements.
No,
I
but-
can see why it couldn't be, but.
yeah, they generally volunteer a lot of that information, and much like all of you from East Castle. Again, I think the early adopters and were everybody over the age of 62, so it wasn't the holdout that we had in some cases. So yeah.
So everybody who is not, I'm talking about staff, who's not vaccinated, they are being tested once a week?
At
Is
least
that
once.
what you said?
Yep, at
Okay.
least once a week.
Okay.
And and we're still testing our healthcare staff members once a week because that's a state regulation in dealing in that. But then those that are vaccinated and don't work primarily in the healthcare areas, they do not have to be tested. However, if you are not vaccinated, even if you do not work in a healthcare area, you still are tested.
Okay.
So
But are they going to be working here if they're not?
they have a medical or religious exemption,
Oh, okay.
and so
Sure.
we do have to grant that.
Okay, yeah.
It was a pretty stringent process for them. They had to get obviously a doctor's, doctor's excuse, doctor's note for a why. And then from a religious standpoint, we asked them to get with their church.
Yeah.
It couldn't just be a sentence saying, for my own purposes, I don't believe in this shot. It was much more detailed and a much firmer process. So.
Did we lose 7 or did we get some of those back into the fold?
We did. So, unfortunately, we did lose about 7 employees, of which 5 were pool staff members, meaning they didn't have a full-time equivalent. They picked up twice a month, which obviously were very helpful. And then the other 2 just, for their own personal convictions. And so, again, they're rehireable in our eyes if and when they get vaccinated. So, I mean, again, we, much like anybody and everybody, we can't afford to lose anyone. We do have open positions already. So losing even 2 full-time equivalents was tough, but we're managing and working through that. So, what else?
Anything more on the parking lot situation?
November, I want to say 15th, but I need to confirm that with Eric. A gate will be going up, and then that will lead to obviously further communication with you as residents on how that will operate. And the winter's coming. I know that they're gonna, I don't want to say I know they're gonna stop, but I know they're going to be hindered. So that's terrible to say, but
Tell you about the burglars. Yeah, they won't be able to come so much.
it's too cold. It's not easy.
It's not fun, right?
Poor things.
Yeah.
Well,
They like warm weather.
And I would say we'll leave them icy, so things slip and fall, but that unfortunately impacts so many more. So,
But crime does go down in the winter.
It does. I mean, and it
You're all going south for the winter, I guess.
either that or, unfortunately, I mean, the majority of these individuals aren't in school, but you hope that also, usually crime rate goes down slightly when school starts as well.
I think I saw on the news, 10 cars were broken into in Brown Deer.
Yeah.
In one night.
I believe that.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. And they didn't take things, they just vandalized, I believe.
I mean,
I think that's what I said.
unfortunately, I mean, I have a brother-in-law that lives in Atlanta. He leaves his car doors unlocked.
So they don't have to break
So
the
they don't
window.
break the
I
window.
just,
They don't break the window. And so he said, and he's in a gated parking lot,
Yeah.
and he says you see people jumping the gates, and they're
How do they
looking
get out?
they're looking for money and drugs.
Yeah.
They jump, yeah. And so he's like, I take all my valuables, leave everything. He said, I left my truck doors open. I could tell it had been gone through, but the person next to me, they had to replace their window.
Yeah.
And so,
Which would you rather?
which would you rather? And it's sad. It really, really is that, and again, that's Atlanta. That's a big city. But again, there's parts of the big city that are very nice, and I would say he's in a very nice part. But unfortunately, it finds you. And again, that's not to say we can't do more and we shouldn't do more. But again, I don't know. I mean,
I just learned a couple of days ago that Bill, my husband's younger son, who lives in Waukesha, and they had 3 cars and a 2-car, and so the one that is in the driveway, he always leaves open, making sure there's nothing in it. Same idea. I never thought of that or heard of that.
He takes his money and his drugs and puts it in the house, I suppose.
Right.
yeah. Well, that's not. I live in Waukesha, so we
Yeah.
haven't had it quite as bad out there. So
Yeah.
I don't have a car on the third. We only have 2 cars, obviously. Hunter's not driving yet. So. Thank goodness. Yeah.
Maybe it'll be better by then.
Yeah.
I hope so.
So or he'll be part of the solution, because he definitely won't be part of the problem. Let me put it that way, right? So, we do have a State of the Castle meeting on Thursday, so I won't share everything I will there, but I will give you an update as to how we're looking from, a development update. We'll have some new renderings, maybe, but we have some floor plans and things of that nature that we're starting to finalize. We will be going to conversion sales, which means we'll be looking for a 10% deposit on the new apartments. That'll be happening in mid to late November. We have 35 priority members, so they've given us $1,000, and obviously, unlike you, do not live here, and so we'll be going to that list and saying, you're number 1, you're number 2, you're number 3, so on and so forth, and then they have a time frame of roughly 10 days to say that this is what I want, and then we move forward. So,
I thought of a name.
What is it?
Point. East Castle Point.
East Castle Point. Okay.
A lot of places, development places use.
For the building point, because initially, so if I can run with that one, we initially named the new building and branded as Lake Drive Estates. That did not go well. Obviously, it's still, and I'm not trying to bring back memories by any means, but we heard your feedback, and obviously we didn't intend for it to create what it did, and so we've gone back, and Anna, myself, Angela, we've worked with the resident council. We will still remain East Castle Place, obviously, but what we wanted to is pay homage to really kind of some of the founders of East Castle Place. And so we have obviously Bradford Terrace. Bradford is a pretty reputable individual. We have Thomas. And then there's 2 other names that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But ultimately what we think about doing, and again working with you as residents, is rather than going to the historic, the contemporary building, you'd be going to the Thomas building. And then we rebrand all 4 buildings underneath these founders' names.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because, again, the contemporary building, unfortunately, is not overly contemporary anymore. It is comparatively to 130 years of history that's in a historic building. But even that is East Castle Place is a historic, it is registered as a historic. All 4 buildings are historic. We get that designation if the entire property. And I know that's something I learned through this process, because we're actually looking at going to the state level for a historic designation. But that is the direction we're looking. Point is interesting though. I don't mind that.
No, I like the idea of the named after founders of the
right.
Yeah,
and so it's a very easy and another way we can talk about East Castle Place to somebody who doesn't know East Castle and speak to the rich history that we have here. And again, the history is incredible. Again, it was founded by an incredible group of ladies. That's who we are as East Castle Place. And that's what East Castle Place has meant to the east side of Milwaukee for so long. And so I think kind of looking back as again we're looking to the future, again, paying respect and remembering the rich history, and I think that's just another way. And so and the terrace is really just kind of what keeps coming back that fits with those names, and so rather than building or something of that nature. So.
You mean that'll be called Thomas Terrace and whatever?
Yeah.
No.
What would you?
No, I'd say Thomas Hall, and I would say Joe Smith Hall, Point. I mean, I think you can have different. I don't think you want to all have them be
Terraces.
Oh, and Thomas Terrace is terrible.
Yeah, well, we have the Thomas tradition right now. So, all right.
In the meantime, we could still call it a building to be named later. I like that.
Much like Mark Park.
Yes.
But that building to be named later needs to get named pretty quick.
Is Bradford, Thomas, and whoever else the founders? Are they the women?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to make sure.
Yeah.
I want to make sure she's at the meeting today too.
In that last newsletter, Joe wrote an article about the Hinton edition. That must have been one of the people
Yep.
that was,
That I think that's another one. That,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Hinton addition actually got torn down for the temporary building.
Well, wait a minute.
Or the Hinton wing, sorry.
yeah, that's
But
the
there's,
name on the outside of that,
Right.
in the historic building.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it says that, that's what I, yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe we have individuals mixed up. Yes. So yes, going back to the history of East Castle and trying to name, and then obviously the umbrella of East Castle Place remains. So.
Oh, that sounds good.
So,
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're always all about good ideas.
That's solved.
There we go.
Right?
Thank you. So yeah, State of the Castle on Thursday, and so we'll also be sharing with you a summary of the resident satisfaction scores at that time. So we did receive them back. We received them back last Friday, and so the directors and I have had the opportunity to sit down and review them as a whole, and now I'm sitting down. That's why you saw Laura individually and departmentally going through them and recognizing them for their accomplishments and also what the areas of opportunity are for us. And so, yeah, I'll be excited to share those with you. We are still developing those action plans and ways to improve and what you want. And then I'll also be doing some, which I did similarly, much like this setting, kind of a coffee with Tyler, but really it's a deeper dive on this actual survey results. So I go more in depth in the comments, more in depth in the departments, more in depth of what your information meant to us as a community. State of the Castle will be very high level, kind of overall, overarching, some comments, of course, both positive and negative, or not negative, improvement, opportunity, and opportunity. Don't see it as a negative. And then going forward, so.
Did you get the number of people hitting in that you wanted?
So we hit 96%.
Oh, wow.
So very, very strong.
Wow.
Very strong from a community standpoint. So I was very, very pleased.
But the numbers are way down because we lost 35 people.
They are.
So
I
it's
see.
weird, yeah. You can't really compare them properly.
They are, and again, COVID also, I think, impacted the survey slightly, just because obviously coming out, we didn't have as many activities, the dining room, things of that nature.
Right.
I like to think we maybe got a little bit of a bump to offset that with some recency bias, because we also, you know, if we had a really good meal, maybe we rated it a little bit more. But you're right, and so we did not have roughly 40 less surveys than we did 2 years ago. And so, and also, the one thing that really struck me also was the years lived here. Because 2 years ago, if you think about the population that was taking that survey, unfortunately, some have left us. And so, we see some, especially with all the new neighbors you're getting, some residents were here for less than 6 months. And so, one of the questions is, I feel like home in East Castle Place. That actually rated quite a bit lower than 2 years ago. Because much like if you took the survey 6 months, you're like, well, I don't know if it's my home, or, you know, I don't quite feel at home. I just came here, and so I'm going to give you the 7 or an 8. I like it. I think this is obviously, but I'm not going to give it that 10 because I've lived here for 5 years, you know, and this is my home. And so, but the overall satisfaction did go up. And so, you know, it was interesting. It's the exact same score that we had in 2019, but the department shifted and everything slightly shifted. So it was interesting. Also, just I know that there were many residents that did not rate the assisted living or the health center at all because you didn't have experience there or something of that nature. So again, that was down, but you're right. The 10s and the 1s, so to speak, had a lot more impact because again, you had a smaller sample size than maybe 2 years ago. So overall, again, I'm pleased with the results. There's definitely areas that we'll be focusing on and opportunities, and we're going to be partnering with you as residents as well in this because this is your feedback. we want to know where we can improve and how, and making sure that that's actually what you want. So I can come up with all sorts of action plans, but if it's not built in you, it's really for nothing. So don't want to be doing that. So that's upcoming. That's just a little brief hint at State of the Castle outside of the normal questions and things. So anything else? We had our annual board meeting this morning. So board is not done. Board's never done, but the official annual board meeting was in October, and then we'll meet again in January. So it was a great board meeting. A lot of conversation, a lot of support. And so again, you know, I think that board engagement piece is something that all the board members want to come back to the community. Again, I kind of kicked them out for the last about 16, 18 months. And then I think, you know, that's definitely an initiative. Ken Kernan, board chair, is in favor of bringing the board members back on site and getting them reacclimated to what, you know, they impact. So,
Didn't some of them go on that,
they did.
the
Right.
cruise?
Yes, they
Yeah,
did.
didn't they have a good time?
They had a great time.
Yeah.
And so Ken was there with his wife, Nancy O'Donnell and her husband, and then George Merrick and his partner, as well as his sister and her husband. So, so the three board members that did join us. So yeah. What else? I'm trying to think. Any other questions?
I'm a little embarrassed to ask this, but I've been looking at that sign. What is the family care room?
I was gonna ask you too, who they caring for, whose family?
So it's the name that is it's for nursing mothers.
Mm.
The
So
lactation room.
yeah,
Right.
so it just feels a little bit better.
Explains why we didn't know about it.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since we were lactating.
You haven't used that recently then?
Never.
Right.
And
It's very
you
funny.
haven't either.
Do we have many of the, I mean, your wife and Willie's wife or whatever? Or,
Yeah,
are there
I'm
many
not
there?
lactating. No, it's a regulation we have to maintain to make sure, because again, unfortunately, less than even 5 years ago, I mean, if breastfeeding, the ladies had to go in a bathroom or something
Right,
of that
you
nature.
can't fire them if they're pregnant and they're, I mean,
Well, and we have to do what's right. I mean, obviously, we have to provide for them, and again, we didn't make them, but again, this space, if you didn't know, used to be a kitchen, used to be a kitchenette, and so again, knowing that and wanting to provide that area, obviously, it's been changed slightly. There's some storage in there now and things of that nature, because we don't necessarily have as much and a need, but it is nice for when we do have those new moms that are coming back to work, for that space to be designated for them. There's some comfortable chairs, there's a sink, there's things that are there that, again, we are designating that space for. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
That's right, I've been
It
looking
just-
at my 6 seconds, very funny.
But yeah, the family care room is essentially that, but it just felt better being
Yes.
hosted than the lactation.
Understood. Yes.
Lactation station would have been the best name.
But, you know, as you can see from my comfort level of talking about it, it's right outside my office. So, you know, again.
And you don't monitor it?
No, don't monitor that. Don't worry about the ins and outs and things of that nature.
I'm always asking you something.
I know, thanks, Liv. You get me all red. But no, it's just, again, it's a great area.
At the convention center, when they first did it, they called it the green room.
Oh, really?
Great.
Yeah, it was back in a hallway. I mean, you had to know where it was because nobody would find it otherwise. The green room.
Green room. Interesting. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the family care room.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Anybody else?
Have any
Nobody can
other
follow
embarrassing questions?
Yeah, I was gonna say any other embarrassing. So, you know, we had my son's first birthday pictures. So my wife wanted a photographer and spent a Sunday down at the park, and but it was really neat. We had my wife's Korean, if you didn't know, and there's some very strong traditions that we wanted to make sure we passed along. And so one of them, we're actually dressing in the traditional Korean fare. And my son, so I received for her aunt flew over from Korea for our wedding, and then they shipped us for his first birthday, or actually for when he was born. My wife's gonna kill me because I'm forgetting the name of it, but there's a formal name for it. So my wife had actually her mother's dress that she wore for the wedding. I had the traditional fare, and then my son got it too. And so we took family pictures, and then there's a Korean tradition that you essentially line a table up with food in front of them, and then you put money, string, pen, and I put a golf ball in front of them. And so if whatever they pick is kind of what they're going to aspire to be, and so it was interesting. He picked the golf ball, so I can't wait to have a pro golfer in my future. You know, it's a nice little retirement plan for myself. But no, it's a really, really beautiful tradition, and it was fun to take part in that. It'll be something that we'll be able to remember.
You do it every year?
Just on his first birthday.
Just first.
Yep. So, but now his second birthday will be his golden birthday. So my wife has already told me that we'll be having another golden birthday for him. And I said, then we'll be done. She said, well, then we'll probably have another one. So, all right.
Keep going, yeah.
Are you gonna wear that nice outfit for Halloween as a costume?
No, I don't know. We have him going as a shark.
Oh, cute.
You know, so and my Bella's got a shark vest as well. So we have, we have the mama and dada shark, I guess, is what we're going for. If anybody doesn't know the song Baby Shark, it's great. So yes, I think that is the theme that we may be going with. So.
You know,
Oh,
you really missed something.
Don't look up Baby Shark up on YouTube. It'll be stuck in your head forever.
Right.
I'm sure I just put it back in somebody's head.
That's why it became popular, because the kids loved it.
Yeah, I love it. One here over and over.
Yeah.
And that's about it too, over and over.
It's very easy to get in your head.
The words are simplistic, I'm assuming.
And repetitive.
Yes.
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 It's kind of like the song that never ends. You know? Goes on and on. No, we won't do that one. All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. November, we're just going to do one coffee with Tyler. Just due to, we'll have a State of the Castle that's a little condensed because of the holidays and Thanksgiving. So just probably one. It will be posted on the monthly calendar. So, but no, my office door is always open. You can always come chat if you have questions. Always there. Or I'll see you in the hall.
We're celebrating Halloween Thursday, is that right? Or
Friday. Friday is a costume party. And don't forget to vote on the pumpkins.
Yes.
Did you see some of those pumpkins?
Oh my gosh.
I can't believe that.
What creativity.
Yes.
The competitive nature of some of our folks, that'll tell you.
Every year they get more elaborate.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I heard the peacock was thought about last year already. So, it is just...
They had a whole year to plan it.
Right. Well, they only had the same amount of time as everybody else because we just gave them the pumpkins. So, it's incredible.
It really is.
We're gonna give Doris back.
Whoa.
Good.
Yes, thanks a lot,
All right.
Tyler.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Such service. I deserve all
There
this.
you are.
All right.
We all
Take
help
care,
each
everybody.
other. It's great.
And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Okay.
Hi.
How are you doing?
All right, well,
Now I'm on my